Miles Horton, and Saul Alinski. It is so great to finally meet you. Where should we begin?
I believe we should start where we are. It is the only place we can. If not, then there is little hope that we will ever get to where we are going.
I agree, but we should also keep in mind that this conversation will never provide the answers that will lead to change. Those have to come from the students themselves.
Well, I have some questions. If we are going to spend time helping students organize in a meaningful way, will they even care? Do they feel change is needed in the world?
Some definitely feel the need to make changes in our society, and if they only knew how to communicate those feelings in a productive way, we would see a real movement.
Some is all we need. I often say that you only need to organize 2% of the population, that energetic minority. That's all you really need.
We should be careful not to predetermine the outcomes. We will never figure it out because we are trying to get an answer that can only come from the people in their life situation.
I don't think Saul wants to predetermine the outcomes, but if we are talking about helping organize people in this environment, there needs to be some direction. If these students have never been allowed to act autonomously, there will be some hesitation if we open the door without guidance. Since most students leave this formal environment after 5 years, time can be a factor.
Well, things do take time, and if we feel that there will never be enough of it for students to begin organizing in a meaningful way, should we even be doing this? If the situation is not winnable, we should be honest with ourselves now and focus our attention elsewhere.
Change is not about winning, which is why some aspects of college bother me. You know my thoughts on formal education. Learning is more important than graduating.
That is why I left the University of Chicago.
Exactly. We are talking about addressing the whole person, not just their identity as a student. We are allowing them to learn in a way that is not inherent within this culture.
So, now it is a matter of how we are going to introduce this idea to people.
Or see if these ideas are already present in this community.
Right. But we have to be mindful that we don't have any leverage in this community, and we have very little to offer in exchange for this intrusion into other people's lives. If we are going to truly understand this environment, and if people are going to open up to us, then we have to appear credible, and not credible by our definition, but by theirs.
So, should we begin by seeing what organizations already exist and see if that will give us insight to the current needs on this campus?
No, it should be more personal. An organization is too broad of a scope to measure anything real. This is not about organizing communities. It is about organizing people.
I agree with Saul. We need to start with the individual. We are going to have to learn how people learn, and respect what they already know. Our mistake during the first year at Highlander was viewing problems we thought we had the answers to, rather than seeing the problems and answers that the people had themselves. Once you understand that, you do not have to have answers, and you can open up new ways of doing things.
Moving forward, it will only be about 2 things. 1. People are going to act on self-interest, and 2. People will act on their moral principles. We have to get to the core of what makes people act if we are going to be successful. Superficial or socially acceptable responses will not get us anywhere.
And to do that, we have to realize that under present-day conditions many people are untrustworthy. They are untrustworthy in a temporal sense. In the potential sense they are trustworthy. So you have to posit trust in spite of the fact that the people you are dealing with do not, on the surface, merit that trust. You have to work through it to the place where people respond to that trust. Then you have to believe that people have the capacity within themselves to develop the ability to govern themselves.
Before we go further, would you both like to see more of the campus?
That sounds great.
Let us go.
So, just to recap what you two are saying. If we are hoping to create change through student organizations, we only need a small percentage of the population to be actively engaged. Before we begin attempting to embark on said change, we need to realize that the movement can't start with us. It has to start with the people. Obviously, we are going to be taking some part in this organization, and in order to make that a meaningful part, we have to establish credibility. We should expect some level of uncertainty and dishonesty in the beginning of this process, as people may not know what to expect. However, if we trust in earnest, then eventually, we should be able to create an environment or build enough relationships where people will begin talking about the real changes.
I think we are getting somewhere. I know Saul might disagree, but I have to insist that we start this process by setting up a place where people have the opportunity to come to us. More importantly, have the opportunity to gather and discuss amongst themselves. We are starting to form our vision, but we need to let the situation develop. We can adapt as we move forward, but right now we are thinking too much. If we are too rational and try to plan everything in advance, we are going to get in our own way.
I just cannot buy into the fact that we would start a program that organizes others without a full long-term plan in mind. Is our vision simply to help people organize and hope that through the conversation a unified problem will emerge? Are these people ready to radicalize their environment?
Radicalize? I don't think it is a prerequisite that every individual and every organization must exist with the purpose to radically change the status quo. Some organizations exist to maintain and to improve, not completely overhaul the system.
That may be true, but I feel that the best educational work has always taken place where there is a social movement. During movement times, the people involved have the same problems and can go from one community to the next, start a conversation in one place and finish it in another. We are undervaluing the potential of our students and capping the limits of their learning if we only believe their organizations are capable of making a marginal difference. Their organizations cannot be catalysts for little simplistic reform. It has to be something that they know out of experience could possibly bring about a change. If they can see something that is challenging, something that they believe would change things for them, I think it can be done.
Well said, Miles. But can I interject for a moment? I think we are missing one key component, and that is the fact that these students are already organized. Here we are talking about educating students and helping them learn about organization, but to say they are not already a community or not already organized is a contradiction. Our job is not really to organize. It is to reorganize these student groups, first by disconnecting them from the set of values that have been implanted in them as proper. And then by introducing a new set of values that may allow them to change the order of things.
But doesn't that refute what we discussed about starting with the individual? If we take the approach of disorganizing an existing community, are we starting at a group level?
Not at all. Remember, we need to stop thinking about organizations and communities as a single entity. They are not an average. There are some of their parts. They are simply a heterogeneous mixture of individuals who interact based on self-interest and need. Sometimes those individual needs are shared. And if we can identify what those needs are, then we can begin to help people understand how they might reach them more efficiently together.
We just need to find a way for organizing to happen organically. In a formal education setting such as the one found here, these groups will be asked to follow certain rules. This is difficult for Saul and I to grasp since we both fundamentally believe that real change can only happen by operating regardless of the existing structure.
I agree, and that is particularly applicable when the existing structure suppresses the needs of individuals within the community. However, it is not that these students are being subjugated, but instead, are coming from an environment where they have been made to believe others will make decisions for them. I support Saul's belief that some outside influence is needed. But I also agree with you, Miles. Outsiders planting the seed could result in little change at all.
How is that?
If we initiate the first ideas, there is potential that we will perpetuate the current system, only replacing existing ideas about the role of student organizations with our own. To create lasting change, we need empowered individuals to realize they are in control of their own destiny from day one. This way they may pass this ideology to others.
Your thoughts on autocratic oversight are completely valid. Institutions must be kept from becoming oppressive or useless or taking the place of the vitality and life of people. I am very concerned about that relationship of the individual to the organization.
It will not be easy, and we will need to constantly remind ourselves why this work is important. I for one believe a community exists for the nourishment and sustenance of its members. It meets deep human needs for belonging and identity, for security and predictability. It meets the need to be accepted simply because of who we are. It is from these healthy communities that trust and open communication are possible. And where those two ideas exist, learning can begin. In this case, we are talking about learning that is created amongst peers and implemented by an organization of collected individuals who wish to achieve a new way of life, however small or great, that is perceived to be better than what they have today. I do not believe student organizations are an ideal starting point for social change, but I am not entirely convinced that there is such a thing as ideal. Given the right combination of engagement around a spirited issue, college students could be just the demographic needed to spark a movement. Once we expand our idea of movement beyond complete social change, and allow our scope to include campus communities, local communities, or communities of interest, the possibilities are limitless.